Weddings generate how much waste? The average wedding produces 180 kilograms of waste and 63 tons of CO2. As someone who cares about the planet and is going to be a bride this year, I do not want that on my conscience. I've embarked on the journey of trying to plan a sustainable wedding to be able to reduce that impact but also still have a great time with friends and family. So I'm going to let you in on my planning secrets. Hey, I'm Charlie. I share eco lifestyle tips, so if you're into that, hit subscribe and check out my shorts for more sustainable wedding content as I plan my wedding. First up, the venue. This is probably the first thing on your list when you're going to get married. Everything revolves around the venue. We love the outdoors and we wanted that to be included in our wedding somehow, which is why we were looking at venues that were woodland based or on a farm, that kind of vibe. Luckily, a lot of venues that already go around this theme consider the environment with what they're doing because it kind of goes hand in hand. The types of people who are looking for those venues tend to be people who also care a little bit about sustainability and nature. But we also had a whole host of questions to ask them when we went to view. These included, where do they get their energy from? i.e., is it renewable? Do they have any green certifications? Do they keep any decorations from previous weddings that you can reuse? What drink containers do they use? If it's an outdoor wedding, they mainly can't use glass, so it's worth asking the question of whether they use reusables that can be washed, or if they have compostable containers, or if they end up using single-use plastic. You can also ask them what they do with their food waste if you're having catering there, or that might be a question for your caterers. And also how many weddings they run each year. One of the reasons that we went with the venue that we have is because they aren't a wedding only venue. There's quite a lot of other ones that kind of are a conveyor belt of weddings, that they have multiple weddings even on the same weekend. And we didn't really think that that went with how we treat the environment. We don't want people trampling over stuff all the time and have too much of an impact on the environment that we're actually in at that time. So the venue that we've gone for, they only host about 10 weddings a year. And alongside that, they have a forest school and they allow the woodland to recover. We still want to support a small business, but do one that doesn't have too much of an impact. When it comes to your venue as well, it's worth seeing what they include. So at our venue, they don't have the seating that is suitable for the guests that we have. So we've hired in some chairs and tables, and there are lots of different sites that you can do that on. And I'll post some of those in the description so that you can easily find them. You can even hire in sofas, carpets, all that kind of thing to give it your theme or whatever it is that you're looking for. And of course, the venue should be able to help you with that if you need to hire anything in, because they will know your local suppliers, and obviously sourcing things as local as possible is going to help to reduce your impact. With that in mind, it's also worth considering this with your venue. As to the guests that you have coming and where you live, that should help you decide a little bit about where to have your wedding. If you're having something that is more local to the majority of the guests, that will obviously decrease the travel that's involved. Ours is up north, close to where our families live, and we have got friends coming from all different places, but a lot of those people can travel by public transport. That's one way that we can reduce the emissions from travel. Next up is the dress, the all-important wedding dress. This is a big one because we know the wedding dress is the talk of the event. What will she be wearing? Many of us grow up imagining a big white dress, but I can't say that I was one of those people. But I did know that I wanted a kind of boho style dress, which goes with our theme being in the forest as well. I love a Pinterest board, so I started going down a rabbit hole of scrolling through Pinterest looking for boho type dresses, going on independent designers, that kind of thing, to get an idea of the dress that I wanted. And I actually landed on this designer that makes those kind of boho style dresses, but she makes them from reclaimed fabric, which is just tick, tick, tick for me. She just happened to have a pop-up in London, so I got the train down and went to that, and I found my wedding dress in the first wedding dress shop that I went into. But I know it doesn't always happen like that, and I had actually already planned to go to some other second-hand wedding dress shops that I still went to. There are so many shops, whether that is small boutiques or it might be a warehouse, or you can even get it online at all the different websites that there are to get second-hand wedding dresses. Some ideas are eBay, eBay, Bridal Pre-Loved, Still White, or even Oxfam, but I'll link a few options down in the caption below. If I hadn't found my dress where I did, I definitely would have got it secondhand. We are getting married at the Civic Hall a couple of days before our forest wedding, which we've called our legal wedding and our party wedding because it just gets a bit confusing if you call them all your wedding day. I've wildly decided to sew my own dress for that legal wedding, even though I have never made an item of clothing before in my life, and I've only just started sewing classes, but you know, go big or go home. That's the plan with this anyway. I'm hoping to use some reclaimed fabric, and I've also bought a sewing pattern for beginners to intermediates, so hopefully I'll be able to make something that I can later on dye and rewear. It's not as fancy as my wedding dress, but it's still something that hopefully I can love and rewear for years to come. For my bridesmaids, who I'm calling bridesmaids because it's a gender neutral term and I have people of all genders being my bridesmaids, I'm not particularly bothered about them being matching. Instead, I put together a little mood board of different colours and asked them each to choose one of those, go away and find an outfit that they felt comfortable in. I gave them a budget and just asked them to get something that was borrowed, secondhand or rented, and we're about halfway with sorting those out. It's most important to me that it's something that they can love, rewear or sell on to somebody else. All the groomsmen will also be renting their suits. The price isn't that much more to buy, but I just think they're only going to be wearing it for that one occasion. It just makes sense for them only to rent it. And then that suit can be used by someone else for their wedding. We're even continuing that dress code for the guests. On our wedding website, we asked them to wear something that they already owned, that they've borrowed from someone, that they have rented or bought secondhand, and to consider all of that first before buying new. We know not everybody has the accessibility to purchase something secondhand or to rent it, but most people should have an outfit that is pretty much okay that they already have, and I'm more than happy for them to be wearing that. After the venue, the next big one is food. I don't know if you've heard this, but food is the thing that people remember about the wedding. For you, it's great to have a photographer that you love and you can look back at those photos, and I mean, it's your wedding day. But for guests, food is the number one priority. When trying to be sustainable with that, it's really good to look for a caterer that is firstly local to you and potentially one that your venue already has a link with. They should be able to help with that anyway. There are a few questions that you can ask them as well, which we did when we were looking for a caterer: where the food is sourced, if it's sourced locally, and also if it is seasonal food. That will obviously depend on when you're having your wedding and what it is that you're looking to serve, but if you're as flexible as possible with that, then hopefully you should be able to get that. Also ask them what they do with their food waste. We actually requested whether we could bring our own Tupperware and store any leftover food, which they have agreed to. That way none of that will go to waste, and any food that is left over on people's plates, that can be composted. So we're taking a compost bin with us and then we'll take that away to compost our own food scraps from the wedding. Our caterers actually said that they donate any leftover food to a homeless shelter, but sometimes there can be like quite strict rules with that, so it's good to have a chat with them about exactly what they can donate and if you can take any of it away as well. You should also ask them what crockery they use. As we're having an outdoor wedding, sometimes people like to use disposable crockery, but we have specifically asked that they use crockery that can be just washed and reused like they would do at an indoor venue, and they're totally fine with that as well. And finally, of course, ask them about dietary requirements. I'm predominantly plant-based and a lot of my friends are as well, so it's important that we have a mix of different foods that everybody can eat. We're actually having quite a chill vibe with food trucks where people can choose what they want to eat rather than a sit-down meal, because that's just more our kind of vibe. But I wanted to make sure that there were enough options that are plant-based that people can eat and maybe also want to eat when they see how delicious it looks. But I will let you know how it goes. On to the wedding decorations. We're just now getting to the decoration part of the wedding, having booked all of the big stuff, so the venue, photographer, food, band. This is the fun bit, but it's also the most work if you are looking to make a lot of that stuff yourself rather than buying it new. We don't want to buy from any fast product sites like Temu, Shein, or Amazon. So looking other places for that or making it ourselves is the priority for us. So first up are flowers. It only took a little bit of research to realize that flowers for your wedding is going to be very expensive. As we're getting married outside, we're quite lucky that the tree foliage is already bringing a bit of green and colour to the wedding. But of course, we still want bouquets and something on the tables. So I have begun sourcing dried flowers. One of the things that I've got is a dried flower bouquet that my partner actually got me for our anniversary, and I'm going to reuse those flowers in the bouquets. And I've started beginning to sow seeds for sunflowers to hopefully be able to grow some myself for the wedding, but we'll see how that goes. We have also asked any friends and family if they receive any flowers in the run-up to the wedding and they're the right kind of flowers that can be dried, that we start drying those as well and filling them in the bouquets. I'm not so bothered about things being a bit mismatched, so having that kind of vibe is all right for our wedding. But obviously, if that's not what you're interested in, you could start thinking about specific colours and things that you want to grow yourself, or sourcing them through a secondhand site as well. If you want fresh flowers but you don't have capacity to grow that yourself, definitely look at local florists first. Florists that are using locally grown flowers. It would be great to get wildflowers specifically. You just really want to avoid the imported flowers with that big carbon footprint. So unfortunately, things like roses are normally quite high up there unless they're being grown and it's like peak season for roses. So just be a bit careful with certain flowers and what the season is and specific month of when you're getting married. Another idea that I really like that I haven't implemented yet but hopefully will is potted plants on the tables. They can work just as well as cut flowers, but obviously it's a live plant, so you can take it away or give it out as a wedding favour. So it's kind of 2-in-1, having a decor on the day, but it's not something that needs to be discarded. Generally, Facebook Marketplace is an amazing place to find wedding decor. So many people are selling things that they've only used for one day, and that's even true for dried flower bouquets. You can find a whole group of bouquets that people don't want anymore, and if you're not as bothered about them being exactly the right colour scheme together, or you're happy to put them together yourself, then definitely look there. But Marketplace isn't just for flowers, it's for literally anything and everything that people have used on their wedding. It can all be sourced secondhand, and then you can even resell it after your wedding too. That's what I even particularly like about dried flowers, that you can even resell them after your wedding and you've bought them secondhand. I'm still a bit undecided about wedding favours, and that's predominantly because so many of them go to waste. I think that about most of the weddings that I go to, the item that I'm given is probably not going to get used, or it's single use and is intended to only be used on that day. That's where those really high waste numbers come from. I have, however, seen some really cool eco ideas like locally sourced jam and honey, little seed packets, or those small potted plants. But I just really want to make sure that they are taken away and actually used. Essentially, we just want to avoid those single-use trinkets that will definitely get thrown away after the wedding. In terms of wedding gifts, we've asked for a donation towards our honeymoon, and we'll also be donating a quarter of that to a charity, probably Cancer Research. Weddings are really expensive, I can't lie, but making something out of that positive for others that isn't just for your guests and your wedding party, I think is a really nice little touch that you can do with your wedding gifts. We are still deep in the planning stage, but I will be sharing any DIYs that we're getting up to in the run-up to the wedding. That includes sewing my own legal wedding dress, making those games for cocktail hour, we're going to DIY those too, and also any table decorations and our own candles. Make sure to subscribe if you want to catch all of that wedding content. I'm really interested to hear if you have any more tips that I can learn from your own wedding or any weddings that you've attended. So please comment below if you have any tips yourself. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and share with any of your friends who are also planning their wedding. See you next time.